Jerry, for now?
I'll be glad to do it. I have the pad and everything.
Okay, appreciate that. If there's no objections, appoint Mr. Bowman as the acting secretary.
So support your appointment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Is this permanent or just for today? Permanent?
I don't know about
Okay.
speaking.
I'll do it. That'll be fine. Be fine. I think I did it once or twice in
Oh,
Jack's
he needed to
absence.
sign this. He should have signed off on the minutes before he left.
Okay, we'll get him
I'll get
back.
it, I'll call him. Okay.
Oh, there he goes, you're right. Okay, finally, we can declare a quorum.
Okay, what time is it?
Uh,
9:37.
37, yeah, 38.
37, looks like.
Has everybody had a chance to see the minutes? The only question I had, under new business B, Ms. Cook presented a proposed budget for fiscal year 2019. Explained the figures and answered questions from the board. She explained that the Mayo recommendations for increase in salary of staff members was subject to county acceptance. What's the subject to county acceptance? Is that the
Supposedly-
council or the board or?
My understanding is that Mayo is sending a letter to all the counties to see if they are in agreement with their recommendations for the increase in pay.
Send it to the board or to the county council?
I'm assuming to the managers or administrative, the administrative part.
Somebody up at the council office.
That's my understanding.
Okay, all right, that was the only thing when it's 6 county, that could mean 7 different people.
Right, and that's, I haven't attended the last couple of Mayo meetings, but that was my understanding.
Who's going to send it to the county?
The Mayo
The
committee,
Mayo Committee, not the state board.
no.
No, it's the organization of employees.
Linda
And
Lemon
members.
is in agreement with it, it's just that,
Well, no.
oh, sorry.
What it is that each county has to agree of the increase. And so our state board of elections will not vote on that unless all the counties give their thumbs up. And so Linda is not for it or against it. I mean, it's not her decision. The board, state board of elections has to make the decision after all the counties say yes. And I don't know where that stands. I've asked a couple election directors and they haven't heard anything either. So.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the minutes be approved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I have one. The confirmation for the next meeting, I don't know where I got that date from, but it's actually February 21st at 7 PM, not February 15th at 7 PM.
February 21st. Okay, so that's a correction on the agenda. Approval of the agendas,
I'll move approve of the agenda.
second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay, the agenda's approved. Are there any public comments? If not, we'll go to election director's report.
Okay, just a few things. The PPTP, the pre-primary training, whatever the P stands for, but anyway, we had what used to be like a mock election this past week, and it went very well. Regina did an excellent job with minimal guidance, so I think she's on board. She's getting more comfortable with the duties that she's gonna have for Election Day, and leading up to Election Day, so it was successful. All the VNCs that we had to send out because of the change of polling place or election districts, or the, you know, the updating, they have been sent out. They were sent out, the last group of them were sent out today. So everybody will receive, not everybody, but the ones affected will receive their voter notification cards.
And that's because of the work you did with Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have talked to the state board, and we're making sure that the same information is going to everyone, that basically I was doing a routine review, and I noticed there were some administrative errors, and they were corrected. So that's why maybe someone's polling place changed, or their election district changed, or education district, excuse me.
So that letter, that explanation goes with the notice of the change to
No,
the...
only if someone calls or comes in and is questioning it. The new information will be on their voter notification card, and there is a note at the bottom of their voter notification card that says there has been a change to either precinct or district boundary or something like that.
So that, you're saying the letter goes out only to those who question that? Is that what you're saying?
It's not even a letter. It's just if someone calls or comes into the office and wants to know why their polling place has changed.
So it's verbiage?
Yes. But there is, on the bottom of that voter notification card, there is information that says, it says note, or something to that effect, that the polling place or your district precincts have changed or something like that. I'd have to get the actual information, but yes, it notifies the voter that something has changed on their voter notification card.
Do you have a number on how many there were?
Probably about 2,000, something like that.
Primarily to the election district, the school board district problems or changes
No, it was,
across the
that
board.
was just
Was
total.
it precinct too? A lot of precinct changes?
There were some, I would say, I didn't keep the difference between the two, but I would say we'll go with half and half. Maybe a little more for the
School board districts?
school board districts, yeah. Mhm.
Were there
But
any
there's,
election district changes, do you know?
Election district changes
Right.
or precinct changes?
Election district.
No, they can't be changed. The districts.
Well, if they were wrong, I mean, they could be corrected.
The precincts were corrected.
Right.
If somebody was at the wrong precinct, that was what we took care of.
But you don't know whether any of those were election district changes or not.
Well, I mean, when I say that, do you remember if there were any district? I thought it was more precinct than it was.
I haven't seen it.
I was talking to
that.
Mark.
Oh,
I was
Mark.
getting
If
Mark's.
there was, it's maybe just a handful at the most, but
Yeah.
I don't recall.
I don't remember it
Because
being
that's
that much.
yeah, precincts, but not districts, not that I know of.
Yeah, I can't remember right offhand. We went through a lot of records, so I just don't remember if there was any significant. I don't believe so.
It seems to be that these were errors that were made when they were registered or at some point.
I can't tell you when they were made. It was just
Okay.
that there were, according to what Mark had in his database as compared to what we had in ours, there was that discrepancy, and we fixed it to, the result was that we're in line with what was before, or what he has currently.
What it's supposed to be.
And your data was based on GPS mapping?
So I maintain the road address center lines for the county for the 911 center. And so we compared address ranges for each road segment in the county. I mean, we literally went through the whole thing and just compared to make sure that the locations that she had and the designations for the precinct and the school district matched what actually should be. So we just did a pretty comprehensive quality control effort.
So would you say that the data that you had was a more precise
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
starting point
Mhm.
than what the board might have had from their?
Yes.
Mhm. Okay, so it just seems to me like we're improving the information
The
that we
accuracy
have
of
based on
information.
the methods of determining these things, because we have improved capabilities of
Absolutely.
doing that.
Did there seem to be any general trend of, where or why, or
Well,
particular areas?
So I guess at some point, and not in the recent past, but, a while back, there were precinct changes, I guess, for the polling places.
There was one,
There were a couple, I think what was it? They were just,
do you remember when they were, Walter?
It was the
Susan?
census. We had some, I know we had quite a few changes due to the census and the redistricting after the census.
For the school.
There were some significant changes. I don't know specifically what they were. I don't remember, but I do remember that there were changes made
yeah, for
at
the school
that
board.
time.
Yeah, the precincts didn't change
Right.
after the last. census.
Well, yeah, the school boards were
Yeah.
redistricting.
Yeah,
Right, but
As
that's
far
part
as-
of what,
Far as the precincts, I think that doing away with Tunis Mills, I think it was before your time on board, wasn't it? Yeah,
yeah, so it's a combination of those changes
right.
and, some changes were made, but not all the changes were made
Okay.
to the update. And so we went back and we just did a sweeping quality control check. And we found some that weren't changed and make it right.
It took several months, that's why
I bet.
we really dug into it. So it took about 4 months to complete the entire process. And granted, it wasn't every day because we're working around each other's
Right.
schedule and trying to make sure that we've got everything in place. So, but it was, I feel like it's now where we are in, sync of where the voters should be.
mhm.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question on this topic from
Yeah.
the public? Is this being done to every county across the state?
I don't know. I don't think it's a
Just
problem in
Talbot,
other
just
counties, it's not
Talbot.
our concern, but I'm sure they make something to that effect. But,
Well, the reason it was done here was because I was trying to familiarize myself with the street files, just so I would know where everything was in Talbot County. And that's when I started to realize that there were some things that were not necessarily matching up from what I saw on the maps. And that's when I asked Mark to join me in going a little bit deeper to make sure that everybody was in their proper place. So it was more it's just a routine thing, and I just found the administrative errors at that point.
Are you still going to send out the little postcards that announcing that they have a different voting location? Weren't, one of the previous sessions, we had ordered 1,000 in anticipation of some of these changes.
Well, we had just sent out the voter notification cards with the new information on it, and like I said, at the bottom of that, it lets the voter know that there has been a change. It's right underneath that card that pops out. It says that there has been a change, and it's, if it may or may not have been affected. Sometimes it was just a matter of updating streets to match what the Talbot County, what 911 has for a street as opposed to what we had in our system. So there was a lot of things that went into this. We wanted to make sure that everything was as correct as it could be.
I think we had anticipated a maximum of about 1,000, because I think you had ordered 1,000 of those changed cards. But now-
Can you get us a copy of what was sent to the voter?
I don't know if it comes out without the voter's information.
Because it sounds like it was double, now we're at 2,000.
Right.
Well,
That's a big
and
impact.
that was, at the time, that was only for the district precinct changes, and then we added in the education district after that. So we had not gotten to that point when I had mentioned that before.
This is clarification, does that mean that 2,000 people will be voting in different locations where they're?
No,
No, it doesn't mean that at all.
Okay.
No, it could be as much as just, like I said, the change of the street address. Anytime something is changed on a voter record, a new voter notification card is prompted. So it could be just the fact that we updated their address to reflect, like I said, reflect what 911 has. And that will send out a voter notification card to them.
Do we know of that 2,000, how many will be changing their voting location based on this?
No, but
I think most of them are going to come from, after the 2000 census, the school board districts were changed considerably. The first district was, started outside of Easton, went to Trapp, now it's in the town of Easton completely. Second district was changed a fair bit. A fourth district I know was changed because of the number of people that had to be somewhat equal. And the sixth and second district in St. Michael's, they were changed. The line was right at the high school, and now it's Rio Vista. It's moved this way like a half a mile or so.
Thank you. My concern just was that if people were going to be changing their location where they have to go to vote because of this,
I don't think it's very much of that.
that
So it would probably, I mean, I think that that's a valid question, and we don't know the answer to that.
No.
So maybe, maybe we could collect that information so that it would be available.
Because if it is
I think that's a
significant-
valid question.
if we don't know how many it is, and it's a significant number, then you may need to do more public outreach than just a little note on their card, because a lot of times you just, just take that in a while or whatever.
So how difficult or how much work would be involved to find out what, from those numbers, what the precinct changes were? Would that be possible to do that?
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot of work, wouldn't it? Because you
Yeah.
gotta almost go through it again.
Yeah, and
To
that's
get the
why
numbers.
we're sending it out so soon, furthest away from the election.
Yeah, I understand that. But it is a question that the public is asking, and we don't have the answer, and it's a significant question.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think that we
What I
are,
can do is I can touch base with the voter registration group, department at
Mhm.
SBE
Mhm.
and see if there's some way that we can get a little harder number, how I can find that information out.
right, because right now, we're saying to the public that there were about 7% of the voters in Talbot County had voter notifications of changes. And we have nothing more to say, because we don't know what the distribution of the reasons for those notifications are. So I think it's important that we also understand and are able to say to the public, and out of that 7%, this number or this percent was actually a precinct change. And then if it's necessary, then maybe we would consider some additional public notice.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if I only have an hour to go vote, I go to vote, and it turns out I'm at the wrong place,
Mhm.
and then I gotta go back to work, I'm just not gonna vote.
We don't want any confusion.
Right. And we still have the time frame, and if I can find, if there's a report that I could run that will make it, and it could be that I can do that, I just need to kind of check with voter registration and ask
Right.
them if there's something that I can do that might be a little easier or, not as labor intensive as what this was.
When did you first start making the changes? Before the first year, or as soon as you found them?
Oh, we started this process back in October.
Okay, so and you made the changes as soon as you found them?
What I did, we started out with the education districts. And that's where we thought we had got it completed, because we had the education districts all in line.
Right.
And we sent out voter notification cards at that point, when we were finished with that. And during that time is when we also realized that there was some administrative errors with the district precincts, and that's when we went more in depth, starting in November into December. just checking all and then finishing up first part of January, getting all the information as much as we could in line. Going outside just the borders, we went a little further, going into each street of each precinct. And the same with the education districts.
I know some streets, one side of the street is one precinct and the other side is another precinct. And it might even be a couple of cases where it's a different district.
Right, so I will find out what
Okay.
I can.
Could you have that ready for next meeting? So that
I'm gonna reach out to him today to find out if, what options or how do I go about getting that information.
Okay, so could you put that in your next election director's report?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. All right, so, I need to turn in our Mayo membership, so I just wanted to kind of touch base with everybody, and now that Wadella is with us, I just want to get that updated, so I'm gonna go ahead and send that in, now that we've got everything straightened out with our board and everybody's on, together, so I'm gonna get that sent off. Just to let you know, we received 4 additional black transfer carts, the big ones, into the warehouse, because we are hoping to get 4 more scanning units, so that on election day, especially at the bigger polling places, we can send out 2 scanning units as opposed to 1, especially for the general election, so it makes the process go by a little bit quicker. So it would only go out to the 4 largest, like Easton High School, Easton Firehouse,
Community Center.
Community
And
Center,
Cordova.
and then Cordova. Yeah, so that's where my thought is to send those out on general election day. I am going to set up an appointment to speak with Andy about the additional funding next week, so that we can, once you have approved it. We are going to need to, just to let you know, because in the packet I sent you about the VNCs, we're going to have to order more of them, because we did go through quite a few VNCs. We had an ERIC report that also was due at the end of this month. So between this and the mass mailing, we went through those VNCs pretty quickly. So just to let you, just a heads up, and the postcards that we have to send out now if somebody's address has been changed, so that they know that the address has been changed, the new, to verify that change of address. So I'll be
What is that,
placing-
just an acknowledgement that we received it?
Right, we send it to the old address to let them know. We send a VNC to the new address, but we send a postcard to the previous address, so that they know that there's been that change made in case they didn't move. Candidate filing, we've had 3 candidates since the last meeting, a circuit court judge and 2 council members, or 2 council filings.
The circuit court judge files here,
Yeah, the circuit, the,
Orphans Court.
no, what is it called?
Big court.
The,
The Orphans Court's the only one that files here, that I'm aware of. It's not your department, is it?
I'll update, anyway, there's been 3 filings, so, I thought it was judge of, okay, I've got to go back and look, maybe it was a judge of Orphans Court, maybe I'm over, never mind, sorry. And I went and conducted a voter registration volunteer seminar on Saturday the 13th, and we recruited 3 new judges, so I was kind of excited about that. There was approximately 20 people in attendance. And Teresa's holding one on Thursday afternoon, so just to give you a heads up on that. And I think that's it for right now.
I have a question. In your report last month, you had indicated that there's no heat in the office. What's the situation on that?
We now have heat,
Very good.
yes.
Very good.
As of, I think, Tuesday, no, it is today, Monday, we had heat.
I have a question also. In the prior, your prior report, you indicated that the sheriff's office had indicated that the Bay Area might be used for parking by those attending election judge training. My question is the sheriff's office saying that in fact that space can be used, or maybe so?
The last time I talked to Scott, I can't remember his name, he's second in command to the sheriff. He said that he didn't see any reason why we should not be able to use it.
Okay.
So at this point, especially if it's pouring or something, my thought is I'm going to go ahead and use it. But if it's nice, we'll just let him come through the door.
Okay.
This is for training, is that what you're saying?
Sure, judge training.
Where do we stand on judges? How many do we have?
92.
92 that we have.
Mhm.
And when you say we have, do they submit a letter, or how do they commit?
What I had done over the summer, I had sent out an interest form, and they responded with whether they wanted to come back or not. Now, this past week, we have sent out the rules of security behavior to those individuals, and we are now asking them to sign the oath, and this will be the solid commitment that they are coming back.
Okay, so when you get that, do they understand that they're also obligated to go to training
Yes.
and to be on hand for whatever the role is that has been assigned to them?
Correct.
That's what they're committing to?
Yes. It said in the letter that, well, I had let them know that there would be more information coming as to when the training is taking place, and when and it will be job specific. I'm not going to do it by polling place. I'm going to give them more job specific. It seemed like from what people returned information to me, they were more interested in doing it, for their job that they're taking on. Maybe it was a little more confusing or something in the past, I don't know.
Mhm.
That's the way I've always trained judges, and I just think it sometimes helps to have more job specific. Any job is easily learned, so if someone doesn't show up and they have to move a person, it can easily be learned. But I like to kind of give them that opportunity to feel really comfortable with the job that they're going to do.
Mhm. And so there's training going on now
No, in April.
in April, and are they being told that they'll be paid $25? Is that what they're paid for training?
I have given them the full amount of what they're what they will be paid for the job. And I think, I know I did, I put in there that includes training.
So there's not a breakdown? Is that what you're saying? There's not a breakdown between the actual day that they're going to be working and the training?
No, I just put it all as one, because if they don't work election day, my understanding is they wouldn't be paid for training anyway. They kind of go hand in hand. They
I
have
see.
to work.
I thought we paid them to go to training, and then if they're not needed, they become a substitute to get a different amount.
If they're a standby judge, yes,
Yeah.
that would be a lesser amount.
But see, how you don't know who's going to be what, don't you, do you?
I'm gonna make them, they're gonna have their jobs figured out before we take them into training.
So you know which day, you've already basically made assignment of these 92 people to their early voting days, job-specific dates.
To their polling place. I have not assigned all of the early voting dates yet, because I'm waiting for the return of what dates they are available. I am offering it first and foremost to all the chief judges, since we're gonna be having 11 new chief judges this time to meet state standards.
I'll just follow up on Susan's question. It seems to me that if you don't know all the specifics of what an individual will have, giving them a gross number of what they're earning, it's difficult to calculate.
Well, they would be paid, like a chief judge is paid $325. That includes training. So that's what they understand that's.
But they also work in the early voting too.
Well, that we will talk about when we do the early voting training, because that's one of the things that we need to make sure that I'm giving them the correct information.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was prorated, and you all, I think, give them the same amount as they get on election day. So that's why I wanted to clarify that before I gave them any more information.
So you, when you sent them a notice this time, you sent them a notice about what they're gonna do on election day,
Right.
not what they'll do on early voting.
No, because I'm getting their information back on which days they can work. And once they get that information back, then I'll start assigning days of early voting.
Okay, so
The communications you send out to the election judges, can you also provide a copy of that to the board members? So
I thought, I can, but I thought I did.
I haven't seen it.
You mean the new one, the new letter that I sent out?
Whatever communication you send to the judges, because I mean, we have to approve the judges, we have to communicate with them election day, and a lot of times we run into some of them.
Well, I had sent you the interest form, but I can send you that again. And the new letter, and the brochure that I gave to any new judges, that threefold brochure.
You did.
And then this newest letter. And it's on the website as well, the amount.
So I actually, I'm concerned with whether you think you have adequate number of judges to cover what we need for early voting and election day. What's your sense of that?
I would like to have about at least 20 more judges.
And have you given any thought on how to get those 20 more?
I had sent some information to the channel, Channel 15, to put on there that goes through. No, I don't know. I sent out brochures with every new VNC, and the response was not very good for like, I guess maybe, I don't even know how many months it was that we sent a VNC. I mean, with every new VNC that was sent out, I sent that little brochure with it, and we got minimal back in response.
Of the 92, do you know how we balance out party-wise?
Not right offhand. I'm trying to keep it as close as possible, but, you know, I
Can we
can't
get a
do it.
list of those 92 judges
Sure.
that you have provided to each other?
I think at some point in time, we'll be presented with a list of judges
Right,
to vote on,
approve, right,
Yeah.
but I
So-
was thinking if we get a list now, you know,
Sure.
sometimes we recruit additional people, you know, maybe we'll.
I'm sure she's notified them that their appointment is subject to a board
Right.
confirmation.
Well, honestly, I did not, because I did not realize that you wanted, I will let everybody know that, but I did not realize that. In the past, I just gone ahead and recruited judges,
I
so
don't think we've
I
ever
will.
had an issue where we've not appointed people, but.
I will
formality
definitely give you a list. I will have it for the February meeting. Hopefully I'll have more names.
I think my concern is getting the adequate numbers of people. So
Mine too.
right now, I'm trying to think of how we can get more citizens interested in becoming judges. And so perhaps putting something in the newspaper, explaining what the different roles are and what the needs are of our county for that coverage might be helpful. And contacting the organizations in our community that have in the past provided or gotten the word out to people who might be interested in being judges would be another exercise.
Okay, so unfortunately, I'm not familiar with all the organizations that maybe have been used in the past, so
Well, the Democratic and the Republican
I have
committees.
talked to the Democratic Central Committee, because she came in, I forgot what her name was. I have all intentions of reaching out to the Republican as well, but I just have not had that opportunity yet, so I will reach out to him this week.
And, you know, I think telling them that you're looking for 20 more judges is something that might help. If you're more specific, I think that might help them with targeting people. And I don't know, with the newspaper, would that be a public service?
I think we could write it as an article.
Pardon?
I think we can make it as an article, a news article.
Reach out to the lady.
Chris Pope,
Maybe we could get a feature story. If you talk to the editor of the Star Democrat, we could get a feature story, which would be emphasizing the voting in the county. And then certainly mention and discuss the role of the judges and the need for judges that might reach people, or at least motivate their interest. And if it's a feature, it might be a front page story, which would help.
With your picture.
Well, last time we had like, it was either 98 or 99 judges. Is there any particular place that needs more, or you
There are a couple places that are a little more light right now. I think Cordova is one of the lighter ones. Because we don't know yet what we're gonna have as far as ballot styles, I know that the firehouse is going to have a lot if we have races in the education district. So I'm trying to, I kind of concentrate on that area. I think Talbot Community Center also is gonna have a lot of them. It just depends on how many ballot styles we end up with. Some of the smaller areas are only gonna have a few ballot styles, so if I have to pull, or, you know, we're gonna need more judges to make sure those ballot styles are correct when they're given to the voters. And that's my biggest concern. I wanna make sure that we have the judges in place that are in the areas where there's gonna be several different ballot styles that could possibly cause any type of, you know, we would just want them to have the right ballot styles.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Well, I think last time we had 20-some ballot styles, if I remember right.
in 14 or in 16,
16, I think.
there were 20-some.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it was 22 or 23, I think. And most every time it's been about the same. The only time we've had primaries for school board was right after the realignment after the census. And two of the incumbents were in the same school board district then, so we had a primary then for school board. But I think that's the only time we've had a primary for school board. A lot of times they have trouble finding one to run.
And that'll be, you know, as long as we don't have many, you know, if we don't have the contest, then we won't, as far as I understand, we won't have the ballot styles. We'll have it'll just have the information on it. Well, I guess we're still gonna have the ballot styles.
It'll still be like
Yeah.
20.
Well,
20-some.
Natasha, the last time I spoke with her, and as a matter of fact, I've got it on my calendar to speak with her today, she told me 28 possible ballot styles,
with the primary or
Primary.
for a school board or without?
primary. She just told me possible 28 ballot styles.
I'd like to know how she's figured them, because, you know, with a full contested primary, I figured there would be like 60 ballot styles.
60?
Yeah. If every school board was contested for the primary.
Yeah, that's what because I had reached out to her before, and then her and I are going to talk today about what I needed to send to her anyway. And she had told me at the time she figured 28.
Well, can you get something from her, how she's figuring that, you know, how she's coming up with it?
I'm gonna talk to her today.
Well, my question has to do with the need, the ratio of judges to the number of ballot styles. And ballot styles will, you may have 28 or you may have 60, whatever, but each polling place won't have 60.
No.
So
But the firehouse and the east of the high school and Talbot Community Center, they could have upwards of, the firehouse could have up to, I think it was like 20.
20,
Because there's so, I mean, that's kind of like where
yeah.
everything mixes and there's many different education districts right there.
So the need for more judges is based on the fact that it's complicated to look through the stack of ballot to get the right.
We just want to make sure
Ballots
they
are
give them
out.
the correct
I mean,
ballots.
it slows the process down, but person shows up, they give their name, person, they find out from the book what ballot they get.
It'll be on their voter notification, I mean, the voter authority card.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, from the voter authority card, right.
They'll
So,
take that voter authority card in the larger precincts.
yeah.
They'll take that
I'm
voter
just
authority
saying,
card.
I don't know
to the
how
ballot
complicated
issue.
it is to go between, say, 5 ballot styles and 20 ballot styles. How does that slow the process down? That we need so many extra
Well,
judges?
first off, we just want to make sure that we have enough judges to cover if we have lines.
Yeah.
We don't want to have.
That part I understand. So the more
Right.
people that are potentially going to vote someplace, that could impact the number of judges.
Right.
The number of ballot styles, I'm having trouble kind of getting correlation between the number of ballot styles and how many judges it takes to go through a stack of ballots to find the right
Well,
one.
my thought is, we would have, and I'm going to use Easton Firehouse because that's the one that is
The
going to
big- the
have
most complicated,
possibly the
right,
most.
right.
I would like to have 3 different ballot stations set up so that you have all the ballots in each station. And then you have somebody that's going to be able to go to that area where these are going to be housed, and they can then take the ballot out. They're going to have to rip it off the ballot stub, and then they're going to have to give it to the voter. And then they need to make sure they have verified that with that ballot. So instead of having only one station with several people trying to kind of crawl over each other, I would rather have several stations
Yeah.
where they will be a little easier for them to get the voter through.
But you need 3 stations in your example.
And that's just using that
Yeah,
as an
but in your
example.
example, you have 3, but if there's 28 ballot styles at the fire station, each of these 3 stations will have 28 styles to
Um,
issue.
And right now, that's what I'm thinking.
And if it were only, or maybe it's 60 ballot styles going to the
Yeah, I
others.
hope not.
No,
Well,
but does that
would
mean that
be-
you'd have to have
that would
more
be election
stations?
day there.
You're talking early voting at that
I'm
point, right?
I'm only getting to
Well, that would be the total ballot styles, and that could be early voting if there were that many primary elections.
and we'll probably discuss this in more detail when we get to the budget, because that's where this impacts, is how many people we need. And I'm trying to get a handle now at what the ratio of the number of ballot styles is to the number of judges we need. I can't quite get my hand around how difficult it is to go through 20 ballot styles versus 60.
It's just for this, to be able to get the voter through as quickly as possible. If you have more judges able to accommodate the,
So this
Voters.
3 stations concept might be extended to 5 stations or something, or is that?
right now, I'm just using, yeah, I would say 3 at this point, but I don't know, I mean, especially if it goes up to more what Joe is thinking, I would need more stations set up. It's going to be,
Excuse me, go ahead.
because the judges have not really dealt with this before, it's gonna be that learning curve too, because the previous primary was done on the touchscreen. So they didn't have that to concern with.
Right.
That I
Well, and
got.
the other thing is, you can't really talk about ballot styles without talking about populations that are in each of the polling places. I mean, the 2 things
Sure.
have to be integrated.
Yeah.
Well, we can't do much until after filing deadline.
Right,
March,
I mean, this is
Well,
all
I'm only-
speculation.
I'm only delving into this now because later on, we're gonna be asked to approve a budget with so many judges in it. And are we comfortable with the number of judges that we're expecting? Because there's gonna be a lot more than we've had in the past, I think, where I'm seeing this go.
Well, because I'm gonna need certain ones to have ballot issue areas, yes.
You were talking about if you set up 3 ballot judges and each of them would have all 28, wouldn't it be a lot easier for the voter if one of them had 1 through 9 and the other one had 10 through?
And that's a possibility too.
I mean, it just seems
If
like-
we can get the voter to understand that voter notification, or that voter authority card. If they are looking at it and they say, oh, I have a 9 here, then they can go to where it says 9. And that's a possibility, but that's assuming, we can also
You
have
don't have that
a.
much confidence in the
I
voters?
I do have a lot of confidence in the voters, but the voters are also in a hurry.
Right.
They've got to
Well, but I
get to work
think
or
if you
whatever.
have to wait for a judge to go through 28 to pick one out, it would be easier to pick
Right.
out of 9.
And we
Well-
could have an additional judge who is there as they are approaching the ballot
Just
issue
to
area
direct
to say, please go to that person.
Well, and also, I mean, we have to go on the idea that when the voter comes into the voting place, that voter is relying on the people there to direct them to the proper place, and not, you're the voter and you're responsible for figuring this out. It doesn't work that way. So we have got to do it so that
Right.
the people who are in the voting places know what they're doing and are
Sure.
able to direct the voter to the right place without question.
Yes.
That's just,
Yeah,
that has to be that way.
and that's why I really wouldn't want to leave it to the voter to have to make the decision. And that was another option of putting a judge out in the front and say, please go to the station.
Didn't the state provide us with people to do some of that for us at the last election?
No, they were outside.
They weren't inside the
They
building?
were,
Yeah,
they were
inside
greeted judges.
Yeah, I thought, I know.
They were inside, they
They were
took
inside,
over
people
because we,
greeters.
Yeah, later judges.
Don't they do that? I mean, they
Well,
shuffle
they
them off to the
were-
right place?
They were we, having a different county, we didn't utilize them, but I thought they were only used at the beginning of the line. But they can be used anywhere. I just
Yeah.
haven't looked into it that much, so they can be used anywhere.
They can use to direct people to where they need to go.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So I mean, that's a possibility.
Yeah.
But I always tend to like to train judges the way that we want them to. I'm not familiar with the greater judges. That's all. I'm not saying that we won't utilize them. I'm just not familiar with them.
Well, they're not real judges, they're just people greeters.
Right.
They'll help them, like you said, direct them to the right station.
Okay.
So they wouldn't be giving out the ballots or anything, they'll just be line control.
Okay.
yeah, well, the other thing that happened, that we don't want this to happen again, and that is that the techs had to cover because we didn't have enough people in the voting places. And so that's what they did, but that was not their job, and they were not trained for that. We were just fortunate that they were there.
Yeah.
That's just
I
not,
think-
not good planning.
I think some of the greeters were doing that too. We're doing some stuff that probably pushed the edge of the envelope here.
Well, that's why I always like to err on the more than the less, with not knowing, since before, we have to give something to the county prior to close of registration. And that's why I just want to make sure that I just hope we can get enough judges. That's my hope. I want to have enough that we can then make sure that each polling place is accommodated. Obviously, the small polling places, it's not going to be as much of a challenge, because now we've also got the 2 chief judges. So one of the chief judges can also fill in those positions. But the larger polling places, I definitely want to make sure that they have the adequate amount of judges so that we are not having any issues, if at all possible.
Well, in terms of recruiting the necessary number of judges, I think one of the things that we can do as board members is to get on the telephone and call persons who we know and direct them up to your
I would
office.
love it.
Yeah, I think we should do that as board members, because obviously it's an issue of getting, or it's a challenge of getting a sufficient number of judges.
And and when I do reach out to him, and actually when I go to meet with Andy, I'm going to ask him if he would, if there's a consideration of maybe having county have admin leave. The state offers admin leave for the judges. So I'm gonna see if that's a possibility in the county as well.
So that might be something that you could ask before the news article comes out, so
I'm
that you
meeting
can
with him on the
incorporate that in.
2nd. Yeah, so hopefully I can, I'm meeting him with him on a different matter. I'm hoping
Right.
to be able to incorporate everything in on that day, but I am meeting with him on a different matter that day.
Mhm.
So, yes.
Just for my own clarification, if the county gave administrative leave to county employees on election day, would they be election judges? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, definitely,
And
yes.
so they would be trained?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
Would they be
so
paid as
just like any
judges
other
too?
judge.
Yeah, what happens
So
on
they
the
get paid twice, is what I'm asking.
Well, what happens on the state level is that a state employee will become an election judge. They are given a piece of paper that they have to fill out. Once they have worked election day, that information is then sent to their HR department, and their HR department takes care of whatever they need to do as far as setting up their admin day.
Okay, I'm just making sure that they get paid for the day off from work for the regular job, plus they get the judge's pay.
That's, they will get paid as election judges, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Is there some state departments in the county that we could approach about their employees then?
Well,
If
yeah,
that's how it's
there's,
handled.
yeah, there are several state employees I did not realize, so I have, and I'm, it's one of those that I think they're starting to reach out to their other colleagues about it, but yes.
All right, anything else in your report? Well, we'll turn to here. Old business, review invoices.
And the one invoice that you see for impressive, just keep in mind that we are gonna have to order more VNCs and address labels.
They just give you the blank form for the VNCs and then you run them through a
Yes.
printer here to fill out the data.
On those cards, have you compared prices with anybody else on that?
No, not at this time. There are several counties that use them. I know George Hester uses them, and so does Caroline.
I think it'd be good, to, with the prices to compare them, with somebody. Another printer, the printer the county uses maybe.
Yeah, okay.
I think Karen can guide you on that. All right, budget for current year. Stand on that.
That should be in the packet.
most expense on that's coming up with the election, you know, so there isn't very much now. Okay, the next thing is request for additional funds.
I'm sorry, Joe. I wanted to give you, I got these just yesterday from, this is coming from the county itself. It does not actually
I think
completely.
that's your set, Bill, isn't it?
Yeah, yours?
No, no.
It doesn't completely match up with mine because this is running, it looks like a month behind. As you can see, it says the end of December 31st. And I have added what I could that, you know, for whatever reason, it was a different number. I am gonna ask her, I'm gonna call to Angela and ask her about the line item 5005 for part-time. I'm not sure what that is. I didn't know we were using any.
I think that
part-time.
was where Regina was before she became an employee, when she was a contract.
Oh,
That was
gotcha.
my understanding.
Okay, okay.
It's 5005.
That makes sense.
No, there was an adjustment in July. It's-
On the voting equipment lease, we've only had one payment so far.
Yeah, the quarterly billing.
Huh? Soon, yeah, okay.
Figured that.
I'm working on it today.
Don't rush.
Well, it just looks so small, and you always know we got more coming.
Definitely.
God bless you. God bless you.
All
Okay,
right.
the request for
I'm
additional
actually
funds,
on one
where is
set.
it? Let's see, that's,
I have updated it because I think the one I sent you all, I'm sorry, this is also louder. The one I had sent to you, I don't know that I reflected making the change for early voting. I think you had talked about the fact that that early voting would be paid out the same as election day, so I've made that adjustment. So you have the one in your packet that reflects if it's prorated, and the one I just gave you if it stays at the same amount as election day. Minus the training, because they wouldn't get training for early voting.
when did we do that? I forgot.
What's that?
Made it the same as election day.
Somebody sent me some information that said that it was, I think it was Jack sent me
Okay.
something. I thought he sent it to everybody about the fact that it was in the minutes or something, that it was all the same amount.
Jack, what do you think about that?
I thought I'm pretty sure he had sent that out, that's
He
why.
did.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about the,
So, so you adjusted that to that confirmation that he sent?
Yeah,
That's
I
what that is.
adjusted this, yes, to reflect that. Mhm.
The thing I just question is why we've got 13 judges for early voting, and last time we had, 6 to 9, 9 was the max. And in the small space we have, they're gonna
Well, I'm
all
also.
over each other.
I have reached out to Jim Bass, and he is going to find out if there's a way that we can possibly move those vehicles to make it a little bit larger.
The medical vehicles.
I don't know that we can, but the reason I have upped it is only because of the multiple ballot styles, having so many, and early voting is gonna have all of them, no matter what that number may be. And we just wanna make sure we have enough people in place, hopefully that we will get the voter through as quickly as possible.
I think we also have to remind ourselves that this is different, and this is a paper ballot situation, and it's gonna be totally different from that touchscreen, and the time that it's gonna take is gonna be significantly greater per person. I just think we, as a board, need to keep that in mind.
Right. This is new for the judges, even though they've experienced the paper ballot in 16, they have not experienced the amount of ballot styles like now.
Well, unless there's a lot of file for school boards, there won't be that many more ballot cells. I mean, but they just didn't have to go through handing them out that way, so.
Well, and again, this has to, I need to get this kind of in line before we know that end result, because we need tables so that we can start working on, we need things that are on this information as quickly as we can possibly get it started. Because we need to start doing supplies, we need to start getting some of the things done at the warehouse that need, I need to get ready for the election, the training and so forth.
The overtime, is that realistic? Because, I mean, you're asking for 4 times as much. I mean, does it really need to be that much overtime?
Well, I broke it down. What, did you want to see that? I had broken it down, what the possibility is of how much additional time we'll have. I believe in the last fiscal year, we spent over that number. It was like,
Over 6,000?
I believe it was. I thought I had written it down, but I just and that is for 2 employees as well.
I missed something, I'm sorry, I should have. What was your question, Joe? I didn't write it down. You asked her a question, I wanted to,
The overtime.
overtime.
And also, I have to, in anticipation of not knowing, and this would actually be probably next year's funding, but if we have, I'll think of it here in a minute, sorry, my mind just went blank. Petitions that have to be done, they have to be done in a timely manner, so it may cause overtime as well, either local or state level.
You've got training in there, 36 hours, and we have a separate thing in the budget, $1,500 for training. Is that
Well,
duplicated?
this is election judge training.
1,500, I think, is what we asked to put in the budget for our staff. Remember, we had a conversation about this a year or 2 ago, about whether the staff was there any money in the budget for sending staff off to get training in Excel or
Right.
software and that sort of stuff, and we didn't have it in the budget, so that's the 1,500, I confirm that.
And this is election judge training.
And what is voter outreach?
Just such things as the voter registration volunteer training that Teresa will be conducting Thursday night. What I did on Saturday, sometimes she goes out on Saturdays because that's when people are available, so it accommodates that if need be for overtime.
If we didn't do any of this overtime, what would happen? We didn't say people had to fit this into the current hours that they're scheduled to work. What
Well,
would happen?
there are 3 of us in the office, so please keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And I would have to adjust schedules so that they would not be able to come into the office because they would be working additional hours outside of the number of 40-hour week. So I would then have to have less people in the office during times of absentee and, you know.
Because, okay, because they're working outside the normal work hours of 8 to 5 or whatever they are.
Right, either Saturdays or evenings, like voter registration. The last day for candidacy filing, I would like to have someone else in the office with me, mainly to just kind of keep everybody, if there is a group of people that are sitting there, that they can kind of help to get the process completed, make copies so that we can get people through before that 9 o'clock deadline. Close of registration, we have to be open until 9 o'clock that night. So we have to accommodate what the state tells us we have to be open for, and then with only 3 in the office, we then are not, it doesn't give me as much leeway to say, okay, Teresa, come in at noon, because you're working till 9.
Okay.
I was just concerned, you know, the last 3 days, newspapers talked about how tight the county is on money, and if there's any place we can cut, we should try to do that, I think.
Well, I don't think we should just cut to cut. I mean, there's no rationale
Well, but
there.
this is, you
But
know,
we have, last time, we had
400% increase is a
overtime.
lot.
Pardon?
400% increase is a lot.
Well, we
There are,
did cut a lot on the last budget, so we had a bare bones budget that was not adequate for the election, and now we're going back with recommendations from a new director for an increase that seems reasonable, and it doesn't seem reasonable to compare it to a budget that wasn't adequate the last time we had an election.
did we turn any money back into the county in terms of the
We
budget
don't
for
turn
last
it in,
year?
we just don't draw it.
That's what I meant, so to speak. There was money left over at the end of last year's fiscal year that was
Yeah.
not spent. That's the kind of money I'd be talking about. So we don't need to budget for money from the county, give them more, give us more spending authority. We have a spending authority somewhere that's not being used. That's where I'm just trying to examine what we've spent so far here in certain categories. The big thing that we could save money on would be this thing called voting equipment lease.
Good luck on that one.
Well, that's the budget for next year.
No, this year we've only spent 21%.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, that's, you know, but that's coming, because that's only in the quarters.
I was trying to make a joke. Excuse me, I won't do it again.
And my bottom line is, I want to make sure that our staff, because we are such a small staff, and because we are such a, we have to do what we need to do in order to put on a successful election. And I do not believe in spending money just to spend money, but I do believe that we need to look out for, to make sure that the election process is as adequate and correct as we possibly can to do the job for the county, for the voters.
What is the additional election equipment? You've got
Well,
down
just
there,
like I put
operating
down the AV card and the projector, because I train with a PowerPoint, and over in that warehouse space, I would need something so that I can project it onto the, or I just have that ability. And any other additional equipment that may come down, you know, that we need for polling places. We have some pretty old things that we are sending out to the polling places, and they are breaking. So, you know, we've got to update certain things. If the state would like for us to, and usually if there's state, you know, anything that the state requires, they already put that into the budget, so that it comes through the county billing. But, anything that could make the judges' lives a little bit easier, that's why I just put in election equipment, not knowing what could be. And it doesn't mean just because I put that number there that I'm gonna spend that down.
Right, yeah, well, no, you.
It's
you're
just to
talking about
have
the
it
number.
there.
Back on unused funds for the current fiscal year, we have budgeted 55,000 for health insurance. I'm not suggesting we terminate anybody's health insurance, but we've only spent through the first 6 months, 8,000 of that. Why can't we transfer the balance or a portion of the balance to cover this $24,000?
Well-
It's $47,000 currently available. If you took 8 off of that, which is the second half of the year, you would be down, you'd have, close to
And
$40,000
correct me
that
if
could
I'm
be
wrong,
transferred.
but that's kind of apples and oranges because one's operating budget as opposed to human resource type budget, is that?
I'm not sure how your county works.
Our county doesn't distinguish between that.
It does not
The
distinguish.
only thing it
Yeah.
distinguishes between election night,
Okay.
the election and the other stuff operating.
Okay,
I mean, I
If we're
guess,
savings in one category, we can use it for another category.
yeah, I mean, it seems like we got, some, I don't know, somebody negotiated a good deal with the insurance
Well,
company,
it may
but
be that, so we budget insurance that everybody has insurance and you're getting the top-notch insurance, but it may be, we don't know, what employees may not even have insurance because they have it through their spouse or something, so we don't know, but you budget at the high end.
yeah. But, okay, well, or you can take the next one up, which is retirement, it's the same thing. We only spent 22% of it through 50% of the year. And so you get $30,000 that remains in that account. I'm wondering why we can't ask for a change of purpose for some of that money, rather than go and raise an issue about, that's going to impact the county's financial situation.
Well, I also have a question as to why, with regard to the retirement and the health insurance, why are the numbers lower for those two categories? I mean, are we cutting someone's retirement and health insurance, or what's the reason?
I can understand part of it is that I think Regina was not on the payroll for part of the year. You gotta give probably, but still.
I think that would be some part of it.
Yeah.
well, for this fiscal year, she was only a month out. She
So she was here
started
for
on the 8th of, somewhere, the first part of August.
Okay, so, well, then it's just not a big.
So what was your question, Mr. Black?
Why, where it says fiscal year 19 request, and requesting 33,000 as opposed to the 38,000 for fiscal year 18. And then the same question with regard to the health insurance, because it's the same situation. I just wanted to know why we aren't requesting as much for someone opted out for the not to have health insurance, or is there some other reason?
I think the one that I sent you is not the updated one. I did not update the, because what I did is I kept the numbers that they had. Angela, I think Angela pretty much puts those numbers in, if my understanding is correct.
Okay.
What I can do, I have payroll registers, and we have a new spreadsheet that we're using that breaks out the information, salaries, healthcare, all that. So I'm gonna take this back and compare the two and see what the difference is and what's really going on.
So is that the state that talks with the county about
So
that?
what we do, we send Angela an invoice every 2 weeks with the salaries.
Mhm.
And so there's a spreadsheet that we use now, and I think that's how she gets the breakout. I'm not sure. This is my
Right.
first time seeing this. I'm going to
Uh-huh.
compare the two. and see what's going on.
Right, so there
Yeah.
it may be that her information is based on some
Exactly.
old stuff.
Yeah,
Mhm,
so
okay.
I'll do that. And I'll get it over to Jerry.
And what I do, I kind of took a page from where I worked before, and I send her over what I break down from the spreadsheet that Shelley's talking about. That way she can see the line item, and she doesn't have to try to go through and figure out which line item it goes to. And that's what reflects on this, on the one that I keep track of.
Mhm.
So I try to make it a little easier for her to just plug in the numbers to where it needs to be. So yeah. That's what I've been doing to this point.
So that was my general comment on the request for a supplemental appropriation. See, what was the other question I had? Oh, I did this math here. Let's see, where did it go? Phone it down. So let's see. When I did the salary part-time, and it increased by 10,675. Took that and divided by what I thought was like an average salary for the judges of about $275. And that equated to about 38.8 or 39 people, 39 days of judge time. Does that make sense? 38 more judges? 3 more days of judges. So there's, how many days are there? There's 8
8 days of
early,
early voting.
early and 1, so 9. So 9 would go into 38, 4 times. So that's about 4 people a day. 4 people a day we're adding.
4 people a day, I'm not sure where you come up with that.
Well, I said, if you take the average, just say the average for a person, a judge, is $275, and you ask for an additional 10,675. So divide that by the average salary, and that gives you to 28 judge days, so to speak. And then actual days is divide that by, what I say, 9. That gets you to about 4 goes into 38. So it goes basically to 4 people per day more.
Of which, keep in mind, one of those is that chief judge
Mhm.
that should have been in each polling place originally,
How many polling places do we have?
11.
So that's 22 right there.
So that's the 22, so this,
And then 16 for each day, or, 2 for each day of early voting, which is 16.
why would it be 2? Because they work half a day?
No, there has to be 2 chief judges in each.
But you already had 1, so you only have 1 more chief judge.
Right, but that's adding 1 for each day of early voting as
That's
well as
9.
1 for each day of elections. So that's 19.
8, 9. It's 9 new people.
Okay.
9, early voting is 8 days.
Mhm.
That's 8 additional
Mhm.
judge days, so to
Right.
speak. No, because we already had a chief judge.
Right.
And 1 additional,
And there are 14,
I mean, oh, okay, so
so
there's
that's 14 and 9.
14,
Or 11 and 9. Or
9,
polling
and
places.
11, that's 20 of them. 20 of the, so that's 20 off of the 38.
Correct.
So that gets you to 18. And that's a 2 a day in addition to the. Okay. Well,
And the reason that could be coming into it is because of adding the additional voting judges or ballot issue judges for not knowing how many ballot styles we may have.
So that's my comment on the salary, part-time salary. I'll give you an overview and then that.
So the other thing that is going on here is we have, from the last time we did this, when there was an election, we have someone who is looking at this very carefully and recommending things to us. That's a helpful.
Oh, yeah.
That's not helpful. It's very helpful.
Right.
So, I mean, I think we're in a different place now with the
Yeah.
information that we're getting on the recommendations for holding this election so that it runs smoothly.
And I intend to, what I'm saying here is the exact same thing I intend to say to Andy when I present it, provided you all agree, when I speak with him about this need for additional funding.
On the early voting, if we don't have the mass of ballot styles, will you need to use all 56 voting judges or 7 a day?
Quite possibly not. I don't want to, again, it depends. Talbot County has the largest early voting turnout.
Right.
So it's a good possibility that it can be backed down. But I don't want to say yes emphatically because who knows what could come up.
Well,
And we have to have enough judges to even cover all these days. That's
Right.
the big thing too.
So do we take action today on this budget information?
yeah, I think we have to.
Yeah.
I would like to meet with him on the 2nd, and I would like to be able to say, and I need to speak with you about additional funding, so that we can get this. Like I said, I need to get about 12 tables for the warehouse itself, for training and so forth.
I want to go on and improve this budget or either disapprove it, one of the two. I mean, my personal thinking is that is to trust the judgment of the election director, who we are going to hold accountable. The public will hold us, the board members, accountable, and what's here certainly sounds reasonable, even if we might or might not agree with it. And my recommendation is that we go ahead and approve it.
All right, do we want to ask that it be deducted from other categories where there's money that hasn't been spent?
Well, that would be something different. I mean, I think we need to just stick with the budget and then deal with that aspect of how. I mean, that's something between the state and the county and us, and it's all unknown. So we can certainly go forward with our recommendation on the budget, or approval or disapproval of the budget, and then deal with that. We don't have enough information to act. We're not even the ones to act.
I think, we need to put that in there as something to request. If she's going to talk to Andy, to ask him
I
about
can
it.
ask him if that is a possibility. That
Right.
might be an Angela question, but I can ask him if that's a possibility of moving funds from one line item to another.
Well, I would accept that as a valid approach to my concern. We don't need to ask the county for more authority, we just move it around. So I would follow Walter's suggestion, we gotta act today. But I think the first thing would be that we first ask that they tell us whether there's a reason why we can't move the money around in the budget. And then the second thing would be, this is what we need if you can't move the money around. I guess is that.
That sounds like, to me, like a reasonable approach.
Okay. So
Can we have a vote?
do you need me to make?
I think we need a motion.
Form the motion?
Yeah, we need a motion.
I'd have to figure out how to form the motion, that the board recognizes the need to fund additional categories of the budget, and requests that either the county investigate reallocating funds within the current budget to cover these requested areas, or if not possible, approve an additional budget allocation to the board of the $24,787.
Second.
Okay. I hope it's on TV, because I can write it down and put it right said.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
I'm in favor of that speech you just gave. Yeah.
You all write unanimous down no matter what happens. Okay.
Is everybody voting?
Good. What else? Okay.
Okay, motion passes. We go to the next item, which is budget for next year,
Okay.
2019. Have you got any modifications on that one?
It's gonna be, I received information from Shelley as well as from the county. So here is the most updated information that I have. And Shelley, actually, I'm gonna give you one of these as well. Even though you already know part of it anyway. One more? Is that what it-
She's got
There you go. Okay.
Thank you. So I'm gonna give you- So I went ahead and adjusted the previous request. Shelley had mentioned that the governor is proposing a 2% increase, correct? Cost of living? So I adjusted that in the salaries. And then I updated where the county billing, the voting equipment lease, I updated that.
So what are we, going by this or what's in here?
This was given to me by Shelley, so that just shows you where Talbot County stands for what our part of the apportionment is, or part of the county billing is. So it would be $90,994. That's why I highlighted that. And I highlighted the other two. I just wanted to give you information so that you could see. And these are for, the other two pages are for the new poll books and the new poll book printers. Which it's kind of, if I understand it correctly, Shelley, it's kind of deferred at this point, or?
So what we plan on doing with the new, everyone's gonna get new poll books and new poll book printers in fiscal year 19. And a lot of counties didn't want to pay for that all in once. So I went to the state treasurer's office and asked if they can finance them. So that's why the cost is going to be spread out over 4 fiscal years. So they're going to be financed through the state treasurer's office.
And I didn't highlight that part, so sorry about that.
The question I had about that, we use 35 poll books, why do we need 25 extras?
Oh no, what do you need for that?
Well, they're getting 60, and what happened before, we had 30 and we needed 5 more, and somehow Patty went to Prince George's and got 30 more instead of 5 more. So I don't see why we need to get 60 for buying new ones. 5 extras or 10 extras would be good, but
So
not 25.
Correct, so the numbers here are what you guys currently have. It can be adjusted, nothing has been ordered or anything.
Right.
So if Jerry comes back to Paul, he's our voting systems person, and say that she doesn't need that many, then all the numbers change.
And I don't know the reason why she got so many more, I can't answer that.
Just
but-
because they were available and we didn't know we had to pay for them.
Right. The only thing that I would encourage is having several more, because you never know what can happen.
Right.
To have them ready, have them for training purposes, have them for, so where we don't necessarily need 60, I would still like to talk with you about how many, I just want to make sure that we've got ample supply, so I want to look into that a little bit more. Not necessarily 60, that may be way on the high side.
Well, what happened before, they were in the basement up to the other building, which is the bank now, if one stopped working, nobody made any effort to have it used or repaired. It was just set back in the corner since we had 25 extras.
Okay.
But I just don't see the reason to, what, $1,000 a piece or so? Or a little
The
bit
poll
more?
books are, what, 11? Poll books. 1158. And the printers are 650.
Oh, so you're talking $1,800 for each set. So I would suggest that we drop to, 48 or 45 or,
Well, let me go through and just really, now that we're looking at the numbers like that, I'd like to make sure that we do have enough in case of, one of these, I don't want to buy them and then we do need more, or,
Right.
so I would kind of like to just see what the numbers would be and recommendations too from, like, the regional manager, have a chance to talk with them, to Des, and, well, it's Des and Paula. We're lucky.
get two, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not following this at all, so.
And actually, I have a meeting with Des and Paula, Monday next week or the week after, and I will bring it up to them at the time, what their recommendation would be.
You had down, or I think before, there was 7 poll books at Easton Firehouse. Do you think, what's the poll book number based on?
It is based on population, on
On
turnout.
voters in it, yeah.
Mhm.
Is there any consideration the fact that over 50% voted early?
I personally don't see that we need 7 poll books
I
at
don't
one
either,
polling
yeah.
place.
I mean, that was the only one we had that many.
Right.
And,
Again, I want to sit down and look at the numbers. My thought is to have, and keep it in mind that this is probably our lowest election of all the 4.
Probably, yeah.
Usually, historically it has been. So I would like to kind of talk to Des and Paula and kind of get an idea of, I don't see any more than about 4 at Easton Firehouse. I just think it can be overkill sometimes.
Yeah,
And especially when you've got people that are trying to get their budgets, their ballots, then you've got an influx of people waiting in line to get their ballots because that does take a little bit longer to tear them off.
might be better to have them wait in line to get to the poll book for a few minutes.
Well, my concept has always been to let them wait at the poll book only because then once they have that voter authority card in their hand and they get
They'll leave
bored,
with it.
they can leave.
Yeah,
And then we've got another issue. So I'd rather them wait at that poll book if we can, if we have to, which I don't, the state, we don't want to have anybody waiting for too long a time anyway.
no, but
And that's the idea. We want to try to get them processed as quickly as possible.
well, I think, were you at, Walter, you were at the firehouse last time. Was there any waiting to mount to anything?
I didn't experience anything, I was there quite a while. Seemed to be moving pretty swiftly.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of
Yeah.
people sitting around waiting to find somebody to log in,
Yeah.
to register.
For the poll
Somebody
book?
People were
logging to
sit-
the poll book?
No. It's the people that were working, the judges didn't have anybody waiting to
Oh,
sign
so
in.
the
Oh,
judges
gotcha.
were waiting to have
Okay,
somebody to come to
okay.
the
Yeah,
poll
there's
book.
people just waiting around.
Yeah,
And my thought is too, and I don't know how many were at early voting in the past, but I can't believe there were 7 at early voting.
I thought it was only 3 or 4.
Yeah, so.
I thought it was 3, because 2 were being used most of the time. Is one you remember? And then 1 was being used when there was a line, when more people would come in.
Oh,
I thought there was only 3. There might have been 4, but
that might be a little change that I'm.
Yeah, I would think
because
4
I
would
want
be
all poll
reasonable.
books to be used. But it's, and also the chief or the provisional, they need their own specific poll book. And at same-day registration and early voting, so that kind of changes things a little bit.
do both judges need, or just one?
No,
just one
either
for the
chief
judge?
or provisional, just so they've got that.
Yeah, but you got 2 chiefs.
Oh, no, they work together. They will
Okay,
work as.
so it'd just be
as a team.
1 for them.
Or the provisional, however we decide to do that.
Susan, do you remember how many poll books were at the early voting last time?
No.
But I will talk to Des and Paula about that.
I kind of missed the early part of the conversation, but I understand the point about the poll books and the printers, and that's what this, I mean, these documents have just been handed to us, I'm trying to understand that was this. And then this table at the top tells us how we get charged. What is this thing here? It says Talbot County, the ratio of voting age population is a percentage, and then a share of the billing, which is what the share of the lease costs for these two pieces of equipment.
And so the share billing would be empty voters, the leasing of the parent voting equipment, the staffing contract, the transportation of the voting equipment, so all that shared cost. And then
Okay,
the next column is the T1 network, so that's the network,
okay,
the connect, you know,
all right.
connection. And also I included in there was state employee admin fees, so it's their portion of retirement, the retirement, admin fee, workman's comp.
Okay.
Health insurance included in that?
No, not health
Oh, it's not
insurance.
health insurance. just-
This is, the state charges agencies for services for using Workday, which is what is used for, put in our timekeeping. That's in there too. I mean, we have to pay for those services.
Mm.
And then the new poll books, the printers, I listed those separately, so all the counties are aware of that.
So, let's see, so the 19 charge was, on this one it was 612, and it's 613, same thing, okay. 612 and change, okay, 13. So now I know what this piece of paper is, I didn't know what it meant. And,
You got a lot all at one time. It all came to me real quick, too.
yeah. And so, then, this shows up over here, this is the budget proposal, and it should show up somewhere in here, those numbers, which are gonna be
Yes,
adjusted.
The
The account number.
page 3, line item 5455, that's where I had put the
Okay,
cost.
so that's 90,
That reflects what Shelley had sent out on the proposed budget.
in the package somewhere. 9990, okay, now I see that, okay, so that's what we were discussing, and I'm sorry to just now be catch up.
Well, and that's where Joe had asked that I look into, do we need that many poll books? And then if
Right.
not, that will cause that to go.
Okay.
Why are we higher than like Somerset and Dorchester and some of the smaller, so they have the small counties?
Were you higher than Somerset?
Yeah, right. Why are we higher than Dorchester?
Because your percent is like 0.0065,
Percent of what?
the population. So what we do, we look at the census, and we figure out the population in each county, and we do a percentage based on, they may not be registered voters, but they're eligible. So everybody that's over 18 is eligible to vote, so that's how we come up with that.
Now, Dorchester has a lot more polling places. I don't know
I
how
think
many,
because they are like,
how many poll books they have, but I would think they would have to have more poll books than we would.
how many poll books do they have? Well, they have 92 poll books.
One per voter. Excuse me. That's not our concern, I guess.
Well, it seems to me that, you know, if we get less poll books, will our number drop? But it'd still be more proportionate than what they're paying per poll vote.
Well, where's the numbers here? still gonna get bopped with the amount of the share of billing number. That's
Yeah.
the big ticket number, which is not based on the number of poll books or printers you have.
It's based on the population.
Yeah.
Does our population include people that are second homes?
No. No, they
Second
would be
home
counted
vote.
as a resident in a different place.
Okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't be double counted.
Second home owners don't vote in this county,
No, but I
so
didn't
they
know
wouldn't be part of
Counted
the
in-
voting
if
population.
it was counted population or not. I wouldn't think so. It was either, so. Okay, I guess we need to make something on this new budget proposal.
Okay, so based on, this is just observing.
Oh, what? Go ahead.
Just thinking out loud, quite frankly.
I'd like to question the postage, the 20% increase. I mean, that's never happened. I mean, they increased 10 cents in 10 years in their history, and generally they only increase 1 cent at a time. I just think 60 cents is too much to be figured there. 53 or 4 would be reasonable.
That was
We're
just
only talking 18
information
months.
I had gotten from, I believe, I forgot who sent it to me. That was information I got from, I believe it was Stewart, that had sent out information that they were considering, and I know it's going up because I heard somebody make the
It
comment.
went up the 18th, back to 50 cents, or to 50
To
cents.
50 cents?
50 cents, yeah.
Okay.
What item are you looking at?
Postage,
51.10.
Oh,
So
okay, I see
it was,
10-cent increase in a year and a half, you know, it seems totally unreasonable. How likely to happen?
and that's fine, I can back it down, $1,000 or so, but still, we have got a lot more postage coming out because we've got other things that have been mandated that we need to send out, like the new mailing that the state had imposed on the postcards, and, I can back it down.
Yeah, I think we should back it down some,
I can do,
7 or 8%.
Well, I mean,
8%
is
would be easier.
it needed? I think that's the question. Is it needed, this increase? If it's needed, should we back it down?
Well, I just think it's unrealistic to expect it to go up that much for an 18-month period.
Well,
And that's all we're dealing with, an 18-month period, and I would say
But, I mean,
10% at the very most.
is this a guesstimate, or is this based on sound information?
it was information that was sent, I would have to look back in the files, but it was sent out some time ago. And that's where I had taken that information from. Currently,
I mean, this may one increase to 50 cents, so. And the history of increases is, they go on a 10-year plan with their commission does,
I didn't quite understand why it was broken out at all, I guess. The items under there are your expected areas of expenditure for mailing and other services like the post office box and so forth. And so when you send something like new mailing from the state is $1,000, postage for sample ballot, and it says includes a 20% increase is $45.60. Then on top of that, you're adding another $3,000 or some number. Why isn't that spread out among the services that we're getting from the post office instead of being why is it a separate line item? Or you just take last year's expenses and put them in here and then add
Well,
at 3,000?
the postage it reaches more than just the sample ballot. Because that's a separate, part of that postage. When we do that, that postage is, the postage at the top is for everything. VNCs that go out, RCCs that go out, everything that we have that goes out of our office. The postage for the sample ballot is strictly just for the sample ballot because it's such a large mailing. It goes to every single voter in Talbot County, so it's like 28,000 people.
Well, maybe I don't make my question clear here. The line item says 20% increase in postage, 20%. What I think, this is your normal postage, which includes a 20% increase. This isn't just the amount of the increase, $3,000. This is the full cost of mailing to whoever you mail stuff to from the office here.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Which is, say, 1,500, well, let's see, to get the right number, but it's some number, then you have to add the 20%. In other words, this isn't an amount to cover the increase, this is an amount to cover all the postage that you'll send out except for these categories listed below.
Right, that's the bottom, that's how
Yeah.
much we would need for postage.
Yeah.
period.
Okay, so it's not, yeah, so it's, I
That's
think it's missing.
enveloping the 20%.
Yeah, so that, I think maybe I would call this better, this is general office postage including a 20%
Yeah,
increase.
Okay.
right.
Okay,
That's
that's,
much clearer,
Yes.
right.
okay.
Well, I think we should lower the 20%.
Well, that's fine, but
Right.
I
At
think
least
it's,
to 10,
yeah,
I mean, it's unlikely we would
general
even go that
postage.
far.
general postage,
And then note that
Yeah,
which
within that,
includes a
there's gonna
20.
be a 20%.
So 20% increase would be that this number should be like $2,500 or something like that, I guess I wrote my calculator.
yeah, if it's based on 50.
The amount of increase is, it's, it would have been, yeah, exactly, I was right, it would have been $2,500 instead of $3,000 if you didn't have any increase in it. So if you wanted to go halfway, you'd be up to $2,750. So Joe, you're talking about $250 in terms of the difference between 10% and 20% increase.
Well, if you reduce the 20% on sample ballot too. wouldn't you?
Yeah, we say there too, yeah, right. But
So what was the increase in the postage rate?
I had gotten information, and there was, in that email, there was talk that they were going to say that they wanted to increase it 20%.
I see, so
But
that's
it
what you're
sounds-
basing that
yes.
on.
Well, they
It
just
sounds
increased
like-
it on the 18th.
So-
Right, so that was information that, at the time when I started doing this,
Right.
that's what I based it on,
Okay,
only
so-
because it was a higher.
So what's gonna happen is, if we take that out and the post office increases, we're gonna have to come back and say, we need an adjustment to the budget. So we either do it now, anticipating that there is going to be a 20% increase, or we wait and then have a need to adjust the budget and ask for more.
Yeah, and I agree. I think this is a lot of time spent on $200.
Right.
I was under the impression it was a $3,000 item we were talking about.
No,
We're talking about a $200 item.
and that's my fault, I apologize.
Okay. So I have concern about recognizing it as 20%, like Joe does, but I don't think in terms of the whole budget of whatever it turns out to be the whole.
Well, it's also on the postage for sample ballot,
I
which is a lot
understand, I
more.
understand,
but
but it's
that's the
out
same thing.
of like $500,000 that we're $200 there, maybe $250, something down below, so that total becomes $500. I'm not going to get upset about that. It's when you come back and ask me for 24,000, then I think about it a little bit. So with Joe, I think if she could clarify that
I can just put general office mailing,
Just that, and down below,
and just use it for postage for sample ballot.
postage for sample ballot. You could take, if you're comfortable with it, you could take $500 off of somewhere, and that would cover the issue of whether it's a 5%, 10% or a 20% increase. And it's probably not gonna be even 10%, but a penny was 2%. Went from 5.49 to 50 cents. Let's see.
The salaries were changed to 2% increase, but I don't think the FICA was changed. It should be less because, you know, it's
think I
based
left
strictly on the
them-
salaries.
I think I left them from last year's budget only because of the amount. That was the only reason. I just left that at the same amount because it's usually over. Getting that information, I did not have the time to adjust it, and I just left it at the same numbers. I can go back and adjust, because you sent that formula.
Well, that's based on a formula that's
Yeah.
standard for
Mhm.
everything, everybody.
Still sent me that formula, didn't you? For the FICA and the
Yeah.
retirement and all
Yeah,
that.
so you can just plug in your numbers and it'll change.
So this number is gonna be adjusted, this FICA number?
Possibly, yeah, I don't know that it'll be significantly different, but it will be somewhat different. Because it's only a 2% increase.
Be curious when you get more information on the retirement and insurance that we talked about during the period and discussed the supplemental budget. We have the same level of numbers here for retirement and health insurance for that.
Right,
Than we have now. So how would we know whether this is too much?
that would be, I'd have to have that conversation with, well, you were gonna reach out to, no. I'm having the conversation, I'm trying to remember, I'm having the conversation with, Angie. And then, if we need to, we'll bring Angela into it to see, because she's gonna, I guess, ultimately make the decision of moving money around anyway.
Yeah, so we don't need to go to the county, we don't need to go to the county council before we're moving it within the budget, right?
That I don't know, I've gotta find out from
I
Angie.
think that's probably the case.
I wouldn't think so, but,
Andy and Angie.
But where I'm going with
Come up
this, I'm going with this is, are we gonna be in a position to approve a budget today if we don't have, these are significant numbers?
I think what we've got to do is approve it with conditions on 2 or 3 numbers there.
All right.
Is that agreeable or reasonable?
Yeah,
Does Angie need the budget?
uh,
Does Angie need the budget?
12.
The FICA is conditional, I think, depending on the number.
I think that's my questions.
And you're gonna make adjustments for the postage?
Is that what you want me to do, is to take them, to bring that down? Because you had said it was $250.
Well, it
Right,
becomes,
well,
it's $500.
It's more than that when
Factor
you
in
get down to
the,
sample ballot.
Right,
the sample ballot one as well, so it's about roughly $500, so.
I'll bring down the sample ballot to 500, or 44,000, 4,100, 40,600, whatever you tell me.
Well,
I think That's what-
Question I have,
Just bring it down 10% instead of 20.
question I have is, in bringing it down, are we developing the potential where we would need more and not have the money in the budget to get all of the sample ballots in this case that we need? And if we don't spend all the money, it goes back to the county anyway, right?
Right, right.
Well, I just like to see it realistic. I mean, the post office is not gonna raise it 20%. Usually it takes them over 10 years to raise that amount. They're not gonna do that in 18 months.
Well, I mean, if there was communication that said that they were gonna do that, I
Or it
mean,
was being
none of us
considered.
knows
Yeah,
what
where
the
this
post office
communication
is
comes
gonna
from, what's
do.
the basis of it?
I wish I had printed it out. I can find it. I actually, when I find it, I can email it to you all.
Well,
Well, my next question is, when is the deadline that we have to have this, but that we have to approve the budget? By what date, month and date?
She wants request for funding by Monday, February 12th.
And that's before our next meeting?
Yeah.
That's it, okay.
Joe, I'm concerned about the footnote as it reads, because of the 20%, but I don't think that I need to spend a lot of time worrying about whether it's, you know, it's a $500 item, which is not gonna be spent if the postage doesn't go up.
And I
So-
can eliminate, I can just put general office, period, at 3,000, and the postage for sample ballot, period, and keep it at the number.
I mean, I'm comfortable with that rather than trying to go through an exercise of trying to do the math.
You'd rather leave it like it is. then.
Yeah, I'd leave it where it is
If
because
you're gonna do that,
it's not,
I'd leave everything just like it is.
Yeah, leave it-
So that we're
we
anticipating
just dropped
20%
the
increase.
footnote because, you know, whatever is left over at the end of the year in this account will go back to the county, I agree, but it's only $500. And it's, I mean, meaning that it's only $500,
Right. Right.
it's an important issue, but it's not gonna change the overall number too much. I think the issues that are big, obviously, Joe, are the lease and the health insurance and retirement, and I guess the FICA maybe.
Well, those are numbers that will come from the state. You come up with those numbers for us, can you? Okay.
So we should be able to do something with this budget if we have the caveat that if adjustments need to be made to the salary-related items after getting the information from the state and the county, they will be made accordingly. And the same thing will occur when there's a clarification on what the need for the new poll books is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yes, one other question I did have on, count number 5,000,
5,000?
5,000,
Oh, 55, 5,500?
no, 5,000, reg-elect 5,000, not,
Yes.
okay, reg-elect 5,000. The board for canvas, we get, oh, that, maybe you've changed that. I guess.
It's changed in the.
It's changed.
The new one, yes,
Yeah,
because
okay.
I thought you got each time, but
Okay, okay.
it's total.
All right, so I didn't look at this.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't get every one of your comments, but I understand. I'm just trying to say.
Right.
All right, do we
Save
have a
time for
motion
these
to
then.
accept it with these conditions?
I didn't hear a motion.
I say, do we?
Oh, yeah, the budget, I think we should, whatever we do, it should be in the form of a motion.
Susan was making a motion here a minute ago, was about ready to make a motion, I guess. You're phrasing it.
Okay,
Do you want to
So,
say it now so I can
sure.
write it? Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the budget with the understanding that a clarification will be given by the county and the state related to salary items and estimated costs of the poll books.
can you make it somehow so that the poll books indicates that maybe less poll books?
So instead of estimated, we'll say adjustments,
Right.
with the understanding that adjustments may be made to numbers of poll books and salary-related items.
We have a second? Walter, you walked out when we need a second.
Well, I can make the second, all right.
Second.
I'm just making sure I write it down.
All right, all in favor?
Well, no, please, let me write it down.
Okay, all right.
You got my vote, I got to go.
Oh, okay. Approve the budget with the understanding that there be clarifications related to salary-related items. Leases? Leased
No, it
equipment?
would be, you mean on the
Oh, oh.
poll books?
Yeah, oh, the number of poll books?
Right.
Okay. What else?
That's it.
Not, salary-related items, okay.
Just those two.
And printers.
Well, the printers,
Oh, poll
well,
books and
Poll
printers,
books and
right.
printers,
Mhm.
yeah.
okay, I can, oh, Walter seconded that, okay. And salary-related items, that included the health insurance and the retirement.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not, just an apprentice at this job.
All right,
Now you can call.
we have a second, we need to call,
We got a second.
Walter seconded.
all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Okay, good.
County bulletins,
No, there's a more recent one that I'm.
is there anything, important in them, I didn't even get to read them.
Well, this one just came out and it had the election, I think they asked you to. That's silly, no problem. There's so much information, I didn't wanna just put it in front of everybody. So many trees. You got everyone? And this is just, from the December meeting, I included the election directors, the election directors meeting that was held.
Oh, this, where we are on disaster recovery plan, it's covered in this December 22nd.
Actually, I am meeting for a tabletop exercise, I was gonna, and I should have written that down, on February 14th at 10:30, here in this conference room, with some of the players, so if any of you are interested in coming, just to kind of see what is going on. It's gonna be more of a, just kind of see if either this office becomes unable to be used or if a polling place, in the case of, say, a tornado.
What time is it?
10:30 on the 14th in this conference room. And Jim Bass is the EMS, I forgot his title, he's
Emergency plan.
emergency planner. He is the one who's pretty much driving this, with our support and help. So if any of you can make it, please do.
Valentine's Day,
Mhm.
busy that day.
We are too, we're gonna have an emergency meeting.
raised that because it was such a high priority topic when we met with this, at the state meeting.
And I'm glad you brought it up because I did fail to put that in there, because that just happened yesterday, so, yes.
And what's the purpose of this meeting again?
This is in case, it's set up by the state, but it's in case something happens, if we have a tornado on election day and one of our polling places is destroyed, what do we do? If something happens that this building is struck with a tornado, how do we continue to function on election day, early voting, anytime leading up to the election?
Okay. Thank you.
And what resources we would need from the county, knowing that if it's a tornado, there's gonna have other emergencies happening as well.
Mayo conference, have you got additional information on that?
I sent you all the information about Mayo. The one day that is definitely for the board is that Thursday. Obviously, it's open to all the other days as well, but they are talking about,
Special meeting on
what was that? The
February.
name of it. Canvassing will be held on that Thursday, so that is a board and attorney breakout session. There were others, I know that Rich had asked me about it, but I was not, but that's the one that really stuck out, that was involving you as the board. But I need to know, obviously, if you're gonna make reservations, you need to go ahead and do that from that information that I sent to you. I just need to know who will be going so I can get this to Dana, not Dana, one person, so that she can, we can have you guys ready for the conference. And if you're going for the full conference or if you're going one day.
The same location?
Yes.
They ever change location? Will they ever change location?
Probably not.
As long as they get the right rate.
I personally would like to go across, but not in March, over to Garrett County again, but not in March.
No, we're gonna.
That was beautiful that year we went.
One year we at College Park for some reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but now they're stuck on Ocean City. They really like that one. So has anybody had an opportunity to let me, as far as, are you planning on being there the full session or partial? I just need to get this sent over to Dana. That's all.
What's the deadline?
Well, the deadline is the 23rd, but I'm gonna ask for no later than the 1st of February, because I've gotta get, it sent over to the state, or excuse me, to the county, so that they can, pay. I can send it to her, but we also need to get the county to pay for it.
Well, I do have a serious commitment on Thursday morning, so I told you, I can't commit yet to going until I work around on that.
And you may see other things that are, you deem just as important as that. I just noticed that one did say for board and.
They got one says innovative election judge recruitment.
Send the sheriff and get them.
So where is the one that you said is the important one on the agenda?
Well, there's one on that Thursday.
Just in here, page 6,
Right,
this first item, 130, I think we should talk
same day registration?
about the very top thing.
Yeah, at the very top,
Oh,
from
canvas.
1:30 to
Oh,
3:30.
right, okay, thank you.
What page was that?
Page 6,
Yes, six.
Page 6.
very top
Yes.
item, 130.
So I will attend, but I don't know, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I'm gonna just stay one night, which would be Wednesday.
Okay.
But
Will you
Okay.
please make your reservation and let me get the, like we did last time, where I can get the,
Yeah, right, I'll let you know, I'm just not sure, I have to check my calendar.
Okay, so right now you would want the one-day registration for
Yeah,
Thursday?
but let me confirm with you.
Yep.
Mhm.
Can I call you back later today?
Sure,
Okay, I'll do, I made a notation to call you back later
Okay.
today.
okay. And like we did last time, if you'll just let me have, and Adela, when you make your reservations, if you want to stay over, just shoot me the confirmation in email so that I've got it, so that when I go in on that Tuesday, I'm gonna pay for everybody with the county check, and then that way you don't have to worry about it, for your own. So just let me know if you're staying the whole conference, or just one night and which night, so I get the confirmation number. Okay?
Will you email Mr. Cronin and see what his plans are?
He should have gotten this information.
Right, yeah,
but yeah.
He gets so busy sometimes.
Programming on Channel 15 is brought to you in part by the Avalon Foundation and Avalon Theater, a leading catalyst for the arts, education, and culture for Talbot County and the Mid-Shore. The Avalon Foundation. Leadership, a beautiful venue, and a variety of programming provide a special quality of life on the Mid-Shore.